In this mnemonic image, Noah's Ark represents melanin. The Star of David represents aromatic rings. The Coracle boat, or Kuphar, represents the melanin macromolecule. The 3 decks of Noah's Ark represent the 3 molecular planes. Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth represent hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. Male and female represent the electric and magnetic fields. 2 of every animal, the evolutionary tree, will symbolize the entirety of the electromagnetic spectrum. 7 clean animals, the hierarchy of species, represent 7 colors of the visual spectrum. The invisible secret, melanin's hidden internal structure, Noah's Ark Decoded.
The structure of the Ark and the chronology of the flood is homologous with the Jewish temple and the temple worship. Accordingly, Noah's instructions are given to him by God. Genesis 6:14-16. The Ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Commonly believed is the notion that a cubit is equal to 18 inches, or the length of a man's arm from elbow to fingertip. Scripture, though in conformity with its parallel to the temple, prescribes unique measurements for such a sacred or long cubit. In Ezekiel 43:13, the dimensions for the sacred altar are noted to be in such cubits as that cubit being a cubit and the hand breadth, or 21 to 25 inches. This would result in Ark dimensions of 525 624 foot x 87.5 104 foot x 52.5 62.4 feet, or roughly the size of the aircraft carrier USS Independence. These dimensions are based on a numerological preoccupation with the number 60, the same number characterizing the vessel of the Babylonian flood hero. Its 3 internal divisions reflect the 3-part universe imagined by the ancient Israelites: heaven, the earth, and the underworld. Each deck is the same height as the temple in Jerusalem, itself a microcosmic model of the universe, and each is 3 times the area of the court of the tabernacle, leading to the suggestion that the author saw both Ark and tabernacle as serving for the preservation of human life. And it has a door in the side, and its cellar, which may be either a roof or a skylight. It is to be made of gopher wood, a word which appears nowhere else in the Bible, and divided into kinnim, a word which always refers to birds' nests elsewhere in the Bible, leading some scholars to amend this to Canaan. Reads: the finished vessel is to be smeared with kober, meaning pitch or bitumen. In Hebrew, the 2 words are closely related. Kaparda, smeared, backupper. Irving Finkel, a curator at the British Museum, came into the possession of the cuneiform tablet. He translated and discovered an hitherto unknown Babylonian version of the story of the Great Flood. This version gave specific measurements for an unusually large coracle, a type of rounded boat. His discovery led to the production of a television documentary and a book summarizing the finding. A scale replica of the boat described by the tablet was built and floated in Kerala, India.
The Star of David represents aromatic rings.
This article is about the hexagram as a Jewish symbol. For other uses, see hexagram. Jewish star redirects here. For other uses, see the Jewish star disambiguation. The Star of David, Hebrew.
Romanized. Magen David, Lit. Shield of David, A, is a generally recognized symbol of both Jewish identity and Judaism. 1. Its shape is that of a hexagram, the compound of 2 equilateral triangles.
The Star of David as depicted on the flag of Israel. A derivation of the Seal of Solomon, which was used for decorative and mystical purposes by Muslims and Kabbalistic Jews. Its adoption as a distinctive symbol for the Jewish people and their religion dates back to 17th century Prague. In the 19th century, the symbol began to be widely used among the Jewish communities of Eastern Europe, ultimately coming to be used to represent Jewish identity or religious beliefs. It became representative of Zionism after it was chosen as the central symbol for a Jewish national flag at the First Zionist Congress in 1897. By the end of World War I, it had become an internationally accepted symbol for the Jewish people, being used on the gravestones of fallen Jewish soldiers. Today, the star is used as the central symbol in the national flag of the State of Israel.
Aromatic rings. Aromatic rings, also known as aromatic compounds or RNAs, are hydrocarbons which contain benzene or some other related ring structure. Benzene, C6H6, is often drawn as a ring of 6 carbon atoms with alternating double bonds and single bonds. In chemistry, aromaticity is a property of cyclic, ring-shaped, typically planar, flat, molecular structures with pi bonds and resonance, those containing delocalized electrons, that gives increased stability compared with other geometric or connected arrangements with the same set of atoms. Aromatic rings are very stable and do not break apart easily. Organic compounds that are not aromatic are classified as aliphatic compounds. They might be cyclic, but only aromatic rings have enhanced stability.
Two different resonance forms of benzene, top, combine to produce an average structure, bottom. Since the most common aromatic compounds are derivatives of benzene, an aromatic hydrocarbon common in petroleum and its distillates, the word aromatic occasionally refers informally to benzene derivatives, and so it was first defined. Nevertheless, many non-benzene aromatic compounds exist in living organisms. For example, the most common aromatic rings are the double ring bases in RNA and DNA. An aromatic functional group or other substituent is called an aryl group. The earliest use of the term aromatic was in an article by August Wilhelm Hoffmann in 1855. 1. Hoffmann used the term for a class of benzene compounds, many of which have odors, aromas. Unlike pure saturated hydrocarbons, aromaticity as a chemical property bears no general relationship with the olfactory properties of such compounds, how they smell. Although in 1855, before the structure of benzene or organic compounds was understood, chemists like Hoffmann were beginning to understand that odoriferous molecules from plants, such as terpenes, had chemical properties that we recognize today are similar to unsaturated petroleum hydrocarbons like benzene. Irving Finkel, a curator at the British Museum, came into the possession of a cuneiform tablet. He translated and discovered an hitherto unknown Babylonian version of the story of the Great Flood. This version gave specific measurements for an unusually large coracle, a type of rounded boat. The Kuphar is a type of coracle or round boat traditionally used on the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in ancient and modern Mesopotamia. Its circular shape means that it does not sail well against the current, as it tends to spin, but makes it safe, sturdy, and easy to construct. A Kuphar is propelled by rowing or poling.
A Kuphar in Baghdad in 1914.
Pitch or tar that the art was covered in and lined with represents the black appearance of the
Melanin nanoparticle.
Mel, middle of dot A, middle of dot min, noun. Melanin, the dark brown to black pigment occurring in the hair, skin, and iris of the eye in people and animals. It is responsible for tanning of skin exposed to sunlight.
The three decks of Noah's Ark represent the three molecular planes of the melanin molecule.
Schematic representation of a melanin proto-molecule. 5 to 7 monomers of 5, 6 INDOLEQUINONE are arranged in a plane, forming 3 to 4 layers stacked 3.4 A ring apart. The white circles in the framework represent carbon atoms, and the dark circles represent nitrogen atoms. The twin-1 oxygen atoms are also represented as white surfaces, and the hydrogen atoms are not represented. Figure taken with kind permission from Ref 8.
Spectroscopic study and simulations from recent structural models for eumelanin. Excitonic effects from geometric order and disorder explain broadband optical absorption in eumelanin. From the above analysis, we conclude that the geometric order together with disorder originating from the thermodynamics of the large-scale systems lead to the peculiar characteristics of the optical properties of eumelanin. The geometric order refers to stacking of the planar eumelanin protomolecules with nearest separation in the range of 3-4 A ring, whereas the geometric disorder concerns the lack of preference on the rotational degrees of freedom between adjacent molecules, as well as the slipping along the molecular planes. On the one side, the geometric order characteristic gives rise to significant excitonic couplings among eumelanin protomolecules. On the other side, the geometric disorder scatters the absorption intensity over the excitone energy band. Figure 1. Molecular models and equilibrium structures of small-scale system. Who were the sons of Noah, and what happened to them and their descendants? Answer.
Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth represent hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen.
Noah had 3 sons born to him, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, before God sent a flood to destroy the world. Whenever the names of Noah's 3 sons are recorded, Shem is always mentioned first, even though Shem was the second born. The Bible often lists people according to prominence rather than age. Japheth was the oldest, and Ham was the youngest. Organic compounds contain what? Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur. or the meaning of his name Ham. Alfred Jones' Dictionary of Old Testament Proper Names confidently derives it from the verb amam, meaning to be hot, and renders it heat black. Ham was the grandfather of Nimrod, the world's first emperor. This version of the name Ham is also identical to Ham, father-in-law, from the unused root HMH, of which the cognates mean to protect or surround. And the bride of the Song of Solomon, often regarded as a type of the church, was black as well. Song of Solomon 1:5. NOBSE Study Bible name list simply reads hot for Ham, but in view of the above, a closer rendering would be passion or intensity. We are not given much history of Shem or what type of person he was, but his name does provide us with a clue. Unlike our names, a Hebrew's name was a word with meaning. This meaning was a reflection of the person himself and his character. The Hebrew word Shem is most often translated as name, and the name of Shem in English is name. The word Shem means much more than just a name. A related word in Hebrew is the word neshama, meaning breath. In the Hebrew mind, the breath is much more than the exchange of air in the lungs, but was the seat of one's character. The word Shem is also used in the manner as seen in the passage below, where the word fame is the Hebrew Shem. For he was wiser than all other men, wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Hemron, Calcol, and Darda, the sons of Nahol, and his fame was in all the nations round about. 1 Kings 4:31 RSV. Etymology of the name Japheth, the verb Peda, appears to describe the process of slowly but surely growing wider without investing much critical thought in the quality of the substance that is acquired. It's the process that makes a mud flat or sandbank grow bigger, until it even begins to yield dry land and perhaps to support an island ecosystem. In much the same way, a human mind will grow if one does not separate useful from useless information, and eventually yield certainties and perhaps even forms of creativity that are all based on mostly garbage and loose debris. This verb's sole derivative is the noun, Becki, which describes an uncritical mind that grows ever larger with nonsense, forever learning but never understanding.
Male and female representing the electric and magnetic fields, respectively. Two of every animal, represented by the evolutionary tree, will symbolize and represent the black body spectrum, rather the entirety of the electromagnetic spectrum.
The black body is an idealized physical body that absorbs all incident electromagnetic radiation, regardless of frequency or angle of incidence. Ideally, there is no perfectly black body that exists. But let me introduce you to something that is 99.96% close to the black body. What you see here, does it seem like someone has played with an aluminum foil on Photoshop? Well, let me tell you, it is a substance, the darkest ever known substance coated on an aluminum foil. It is Venta black.
Seven clean animals, visually represented by the hierarchy of species, represent the seven colors of the visual spectrum.
Absorption spectrum of melanin. In the near-infrared wavelengths of light used for iris recognition, 700 nanometers, 900 nanometers, iris pigmentation and apparent color in the visible band, 400 nanometers, 700 nanometers, play almost no role. The peak absorption of human melanin pigment occurs around 335 nanometers, and absorption is almost completely attenuated for wavelengths longer than 700 nanometers. The reflectance of the iris is quite constant over the 700 nanometers, 900 nanometer band, although the iris looks much brighter in video images acquired in the longer wavelengths simply because the sclera and skin are much darker, less reflective in those wavelengths, and so the camera gain setting tends to increase. Pigmentations in the iris itself, including freckles and blotches sometimes caused by drug treatments for glaucoma, latent and other prostaglandin analogs, are largely invisible in the near-infrared wavelengths used for iris recognition and thus do not affect the iris code.
The invisible secret, melanin's hidden internal structure, Noah's Ark Decoded. In this mnemonic image, Noah's Ark represents melanin. The Star of David represents aromatic rings. The Coracle boat, or Kuphar, represents the melanin macromolecule. The 3 decks of Noah's Ark represent the 3 molecular planes. Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth represent hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. Male and female represent the electric and magnetic fields. 2 of every animal, the evolutionary tree, will symbolize the entirety of the electromagnetic spectrum. 7 clean animals, the hierarchy of species, represent 7 colors of the visual spectrum.